Hi, my name's Rob Ryder, speaking out of West Cornwall. I'm just going to do a short video here regarding, this is the book that I wrote, Debt, Slavery, the Economics of a Banking Mafia. And what I've done that has just been published last night is an updated version, and it's got a slightly different book cover because I had to change the book cover because of the size of the new book. And I'll put a link to that below the video. So why have I done an updated version? Well, I've been talking about this stuff since about 2010. I've done my own talks regarding money creation, economy. In the last couple of years, I've done a couple of talks regarding money. I've published the book, I've done the videos, I've spoken to people, and everybody seems to get the simplicity of what I'm talking about. Then you go home, they listen to the mainstream news, some expert, allegedly economist, talking complicated economic matters, and they get confused again. Now, the initial idea of the project was to get the book out without the nonsense. Basic, the economics of 2 + 2 = 4 is what I call it. They are going off the economics of 2 + 2 = 5, which I'm going to explain in a second. But people get confused because they start listening to this complicated talk regarding the economy and inflation and interest rates, etc., 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 and this cloud comes in the mind and they're gone again. And so the initial version of the book was simplistic, not really going into too much, to say, listen, you've been scammed because 2 and 2 is 4. Obviously, there's not enough people get that. They want to know why 2 and 2 doesn't equal 5. So I've had to expand on the explanation, which I didn't want to do in this version, expand a bit to explain a little bit the relationship with interest rates, inflation, the economy, etc., so people can understand the madness a little bit more. Now, what I've been doing for many years as well is trying to get people to step outside of allopathic thinking, because you're never going to solve health problems inside the allopathic paradigm. Now, the people that run the system don't care what your understanding is, even if you're exposing corruption. As long as you stay within the allopathic paradigm, nothing ever really changes. Yeah, you'll get a safer, I'll do that, we don't do that where I'm coming from in Manchester, but we'll do that, a safer vaccine. That's what a lot of the people are coming for, because most people are staying within the boundaries of allopathic thinking. So you have to step out of them boundaries for a real holistic view of health and disease. It's the only way forward, the only way. And it's the same with economics. They don't care if you expose fraud, corruption, whatever, as long as you stay within the boundaries of what I call the economics of a banking mafia. And this is what most people are doing. Most people. And unfortunately, they're trying to understand, like doctors explain complicated details of science of disease, but they don't really give you any understanding whatsoever. Economists do the same. The complex relationships with interest and trade and profit and economic growth, etc. But they don't really get to the foundation. They don't step outside of the box and look at the system and say, hang on a minute, 2 + 2 doesn't equal 5, 4. And that's what I tried to do with the first book. But obviously some people need to think or need to understand more the 2 + 2, 5. So I've expanded quite a bit, but I'm going to expand it very simply here. Why is 2 + 2 + 4? Because money creation, when we extend credit, as I've gone through another video, so I don't want to go too much on this. You extend credit, that creates a debt which is equal. So if you want to borrow 10 grand, you create 10 grand credit, leaves a 10 grand debt. And as you're paying that off, you're taking the money out of existence. So the 10 grand that you've borrowed, you earn on that via your productivity, and you take it back out of circulation via the 10 grand paying off the debt that's left behind. So I say 2 plus 2 is 4, because they're equal. That's the economy and the money creation system that we need, and it's very simple to put into place. Their system is 2 plus 2 is 5. So you get the 10 grand debt credited to your account. You're left with a 10 grand debt, which is like, say, 2 plus 2 equals 4, but you have to pay interest. Let's say, for example, £1,000, whatever. That's the extra number that takes us 2 plus 2 equals 5. Now, we know 2 plus 2 does not ever equal 5. Even in quantum physics, it might exist as a possibility, but it cannot manifest because 2 plus 2 is 4. So this illusionary 5 that doesn't exist, because we know the interest was never created, only the principal, we're running around chasing that. And that is what the whole system is about. That's the only thing you need to understand. Sorting that problem out will sort everything else out. So their system is 2 plus 2 equals 5, but nobody questions this extra number. And it's simple, it's usury, it's the interest created that doesn't exist. So it can never be paid back. And we're running around spending most of our lives chasing something that doesn't exist. And that's why we have boom and bust. This is why some people fail miserably financially in life. A few people might succeed. Most people, we're always chasing debt. It is as simple as that. And when people are talking about economic growth, when they're talking about, oh, we have to do this, the Bank of England, we have to raise interest rates, or we've lowered interest rates too long, that's created inflation. Now we're raising interest rates to sort out inflation. That sort of nonsense. I think Richard Werner, the economist, he says that's the magician's trick. Yeah, the distraction, while the real stuff is going on here. The distraction is, oh, interest rates, growth, economy, blah, blah, blah. The real stuff is money creation, which they're not talking about. Money is created by banks when they extend credit. That's what they're not talking about. That will dictate whether you get asset bubbles, whether you get inflation, whether the economy will grow or not the interest rates. That's this illusionary bit of magic they put in front of you, and this is where people are getting locked there, getting confused. I've explained in other videos there can be a relationship between inflation and interest rates. And I put the example, if you have, because Richard Werner has shown that all economic theories state that low interest rates equals economic growth, high interest rates equals low growth. And actually, there's no studies to back that up. And he's shown that all the actual studies, which he's done, because nobody would do it, shown it's the opposite. So why would that be? Again, this is the distraction, while nobody's talking about, in this hand, money creation. Again, money is a representation, currency is a representation of productive energy. If interest rates are really low and you're kind of getting free money, as it were, then people are more likely to spend on luxury items, assets, maybe own a bigger house, a bigger car. So over a period of time, money isn't really going into the real economy, it's going into consumerism. Money going directly created, going into consumer products creates inflation. Money going into, or too much going into assets, creates asset bubbles. So when you have low interest rates over a period of time, it will lead to problems. But it's nothing to do with the interest rates. That's the illusion, really. It's nothing to do with the actual interest rates. It's to do with where the money's going because of the low interest rates. people are more likely to buy a bigger asset, investing more in consumer spending, and yes, some will go into productivity. But you're going to get more money into luxury items, consumer spending, and assets, and this will eventually create an asset bubble and inflation. But it's nothing to do with the interest rates. It's to do with where the money that's being created is going. Yeah, that can be influenced by the interest rates, but it's not the interest rates causing it. So he says, when you raise interest rates, you get economic growth. Well, why could that be? Again, it's nothing to do with the interest rates. Again, that's the distraction while the real stuff's going on here. If you've got high interest rates, are you going to buy a bigger house? Are you going to buy a bigger car? Are you going to splash out on a luxury holiday? Are you going to start buying consumer goods that you don't need? No. So more money will be likely go into productivity. Because why are you going to borrow money at a high interest rate for things that you can't really afford? No, you're going to put it into production so you can make money and sustain your life. So this is what I felt I needed to explain. I didn't want to, because ultimately all you need to know in 2 and 2 is 4. Debt, credit, should we say, money creation, and the debt left behind. They should be equal. We have a system where 2 and 2 is 5 because the interest isn't created. It's as simple as that. So like I say, I've had to explain that a little bit more, and that was the reason to republish the book. Because unfortunately, people, again, it's just like people going to a holistic seminar and then they go home, listen to a doctor or a virologist talk about these complicated things, but it's complicated nonsense. Same as economists talking about complicated nonsense. They have no idea, because they're not given a foundation at university. Just as doctors are not given the right foundation, economists aren't. So everything they build above that is nonsense. It's as simple as that. So yeah, check that book out if you're interested. It is right, because 2 and 2 is 4. It's not 5. The UK column, I've got their hoodie on today. I've known them since about 2010. They've been pushing this since about 2007-8. I figured this out at the 2008 financial crash. I think they figured it out at the same time, or maybe a little bit before, I'm not sure. But they've been on this for a very long time. They've had a little bit of a drift with the last couple of years with David Scott, who was working with them, who was pushing gold. And in my opinion, he was pushing a narrative within the economics of a banking mafia. But now UK column have gone back to money creation, which is the simple problem and therefore a simple solution, putting forward national credit. It's the only solution. All the rest is nonsense. Gold, silver, I've gone through that in other videos. These are the only media and UK column that I know have been pushing this out relentlessly for well over a decade. And so I'd recommend going on to them. If you really want to sort this problem out, look at my videos for free. It's all I've dissected the book for free. Yeah, I'm not trying to make money on this, but if you want to buy the book there. It's as plain and simple explained. And I've also explained in this one, updated a little bit, why the councils are going bust. Because I thought, because our local council here in Cornwall has declared they're going bust in 2 years. So in the book, I explain how you get these nations into debt, basically, on this 2 + 2 is 5 debt. They're getting into an unpayable debt, so they have to sell off the assets. This is what is happening in Ukraine. This is what is the IMF, the World Bank, have been going around the world for decades, enslaving nations into debt, so they sell the assets. It's all about getting the assets. Recently, Cornwall Council have said, after putting the tax up, the tax demand, the money demand, the extortion, they've put it up the maximum they can, and they're lowering the services. How can that be? People are got to question this. People are they're choosing to be ignorant now, and it's apathy as well. So they've created a separate business where they do all their business on our behalf. And this is covering up fraud. We know that is. This company that they've created, that they give all the contracts to, it's because that company they've created won't be as open to freedom of information as the council will be. This is out and out fraud. Now the council are going bust, which obviously means they're a company trading for profit, because otherwise why would you go bust? They've declared they'll be bust in a couple of years. So what are they doing? They've just announced they're going to start to sell off assets. Whose are those assets? They're ours, allegedly. Yeah. So how do they have the right to sell off our assets? This is going on a national scale and international scale, and now with all the councils going bust, it's going on a regional scale. Selling off, deliberately going bust through incompetence or fraud, selling the assets, and all the wealth gets put into the private sector, in the hands of private individuals, and you will pay more for less. It's no different than a mafia going over around to the local pubs and offering a service, saying, I want X amount a week as a protection service. You're going to pay it or else. Simple as that. That's all councils do now. And now they're actively corporations trading as profit. Even in Cornwall, they're actually corporations as profit, because, like I say, they've created their own businesses. And yet, aren't we supposed to be Cornwall Council? The people belonging isn't supposed to belong to us, a public body. And they're selling off our assets without even asking us. They're declaring a climate emergency without asking us. Yeah, this is very little time for people who nod the red, who are apathetic now. There's very little excuse to be ignorant. You know, you're being scammed. It's so obvious. I'm just explaining in the book how you're being scammed. People need to know this because it is so unbelievably simple. Therefore, the solution is simple. People want to be apathetic, lazy, not willing to understand the fact that 2 + 2 is 4. No sympathy. You'll never hear me complaining. Never. Because it is what it is. We live in a corrupt, fraudulent system run by a mafia. If you're happy with that, freedom of choice, great. I'll have to be enslaved with you. Lose my house, lose everything eventually. That's how it is. I'm not going to complain. Certainly won't be listening to anybody else complaining if they choose to be ignorant and apathetic. So I'll put a link to the book below if you're interested. If you haven't got the money, just go through all my videos. I've explained it all there. It's all you need to know. And the only thing that changes this is action. Yeah? You can't meditate your way into a paradise. The tables of the moneylenders need to be turned over. And as I've said, they reside in the City of London. And that's what has to be done.